Good evening. It's an evening of fast-paced developments. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has just held a meeting with Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh, with the National Security Advisor Ajit Doval, with the Chief of Defence Staff General Anil Chauhan, and with the three services chiefs. And this is a very crucial meeting. The Prime Minister has given them clear instructions from what sources tell India today. They have to teach terror a lesson. We've got exclusive details from the Prime Minister's security meeting. This meeting that lasted over 90 minutes. Top government sources are telling India today. The Prime Minister said India's national resolve is to deal a crushing blow to terror. The Prime Minister said, from what sources tell India today, he has absolute faith, complete faith and confidence in the professional abilities of the Indian armed forces, of the Army, the Navy and the Air Force. The Prime Minister said they have complete operational freedom to decide on the mode, the target and the timing of India's response. Very, very clear that it's the armed forces that will decide whether it's the army that's to hit across, whether it's the Navy, the Air Force, two services, three services, all of them together, all of them at different points of time. They have to decide, but a crushing blow has to be dealt to Pakistan's state-sponsored radical Islamist terror. From what top government sources are telling India today, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has given the forces a clear hand, a free hand to deal with Pakistan's state-sponsored radical Islamist terror. The Prime Minister said it is India's national resolve to deal a crushing blow to terror. That's what top sources are telling India today. And these are images, these are visuals of that meeting at 7 Lok Kalyan Marg, a meeting that lasted over 90 minutes. You see the Prime Minister, the Raksha Mantri, the Chief of Defence Staff, General Upendra Dwivedi, the Chief of Army Staff, the National Security Advisor. You see in these images Ajit Doval, you see Admiral Dinesh Tripathi, the Chief of Naval Staff, and of course Air Chief Marshal A.P. Singh, Chief of Air Staff. The Prime Minister chaired this meeting where today is day 7 of that horrific Pahalgam attack. This is where those Pakistani terrorists, they singled out those tourists, asked them their names, found out those who were Hindus, those who could not recite the Kalma, they were shot dead at point-blank range. And that's actually shaken the conscience of the nation. Only a state sponsor of radical Islamist terror like Pakistan, and that too when the army chief of that country is a radical Islamist himself, the manner in which he speaks, and not just then, but even subsequently, General Munir, for his personal survival is what sources tell India today, he carried out this, he ordered this strike on India. But if you look at the Prime Minister's expression, his resolve and the resolve of the armed forces, the state sponsors of radical Islamist terror will be taught a lesson, and perhaps a lesson that they hadn't even thought of. And some of it has started happening. A lot more needs to happen in the days, weeks. How long will it take? We still do not know, because this meeting, we can tell you, lasted about 90 minutes. It's been an assessment of the situation on ground. The Prime Minister spoke of the need to crush this terror. Full faith in and confidence in the armed forces. They have the professional abilities. They have to decide the target. They have to choose the target, and they have to strike at a place and time of their choosing. But then the adversary across, Pakistanis should get that message that killing Indians is no longer a low-cost option for them to even remain in power. Because that's what they do. When they say Kashmir is the jugular vein, and this is what sources are telling India today, it's the jugular vein of the army that wants to remain in power in Pakistan. As far as Shahbaz Sharif is concerned, the Prime Minister or anybody else, they are not in power. It is Asim Munir who wants to remain in power and longer, perhaps indefinitely. He anyway has ensured that he'll stay in power till 2027. But is that actually the case? Because there are some murmurs that are emerging from Pakistan. And on this broadcast, we'll give you details about how that country is facing immense trouble internally, from Gilgit-Baltistan to Balochistan, from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa to Sindh. So the army chief, who's unable to manage troubles in his own country, to divert attention from the problems he's facing, he targets innocent Hindus in Pahalgam. And perhaps the message of this meeting is enough. There will be a response at a place and time of India's choosing. Now let me tell you what's happening across the border in Pakistan. And do see Pakistan's maneuvers. Fifth day of massive ceasefire violations. Initially it was small arms, now there is escalation. So when you look at the escalation ladder, Pakistan is now using bigger caliber weapons at the LC. It hasn't yet escalated to howitzers. It hasn't yet escalated to the 155mm howitzers, because this is where once India starts punishing Pakistan, once India starts carrying out those fire assaults like India did before the Ramzan ceasefire of 2003, do keep in mind, Pakistan sued for that Ramzan ceasefire because India was punishing Pakistan all along this 770-kilometer long line of control. But right now, from Kupwara to Baramulla north of Pir Panjal and Akhnur to Punch south of Pir Panjal, there are ceasefire violations. Pakistan, the exercises it's carrying out, and three major exercises as far as the Air Force is concerned. And we have aviators who are joining us on this broadcast. They'll explain the significance and the names of these exercises. Fizai-e-Badr, that's the exercise that the Northern Air Command of Pakistan is carrying out. Lalkar-e-Momin is the exercise that the Central Air Command is carrying out. And this is the exercise, Lalkar-e-Momin, is for protection not just of Lahore, but also the Cholistan Desert. Cholistan Desert has another story where there's a fight between Punjab and Sindh happening over the Indus Waters Treaty. So holding the Indus Waters Treaty in abeyance is already some level of punishment that is being inflicted on Pakistan, more when they realize that Pakistan Army Chief Asim Munir's pet project of Cholistan Desert, greening of that Cholistan Desert, is now just a pipe dream. But then there's a third exercise they're carrying out. That's exercise Zarb-e-Haidari, that's happening in the northern areas. And this is a high-intensity air activity. This is where Pakistan fears there could be an airstrike in Gilgit and in Balochistan. Pakistan, in panic, has issued a NOTAM. NOTAM is notice to airmen, and that is a signal that it is sealing off its airspace all over Lahore and Islamabad for the course of this exercise. Is this also a message that Pakistan intends to fire a missile, test a missile, which is of course over Arabian Sea, because it's also issued a warning there? Or is Pakistan fearing a ground strike? Joining me on this India Today special broadcast is Air Marshal Anil Chopra, former Director General of Center for Air Power Studies. He's also a former Mirage 2000 pilot. Lieutenant General KJS Dhillon, General Tiny Dhillon, is well known, former GOC of the Kashmir Corps, Director General of Defense Intelligence Agencies he was, and also the Deputy Chief of Integrated Defense Staff at the time of Pulwama and subsequent action that took place. He was at the helm of affairs in Kashmir. Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha is former Flag Officer Commanding-in-Chief of Indian Navy's Western Naval Command. He's a naval aviator himself. And of course, Tilak Deveshar is former member of the National Security Advisory Board. He's former Special Secretary of the Research and Analysis Wing, and someone who knows Pakistan like the back of his hand. And he understands the mindset. Our experts understand the Pakistani mindset. And that is why defeating the enemy in his mind, equally important, if not more, before defeating him on ground. You couldn't forget a better panel. Before I come to our panel, I also want to bring in our reporters. But first, get you this report on the day's developments. The BrahMos supersonic anti-ship and anti-surface cruise missiles being launched in the Arabian Sea. India's indigenous guided missile destroyer, INS Surat, successfully hits a sea-skimming target using a medium-range surface-to-air missile. A public display of these precision offensive weapons is making Pakistan very nervous. Pakistan's Defense Minister Khwaja Asif fears Pakistan's expecting a punishment for Pahalgam.
But obviously, we have reinforced our forces because it is something which is imminent now.
A flustered Pakistan has now scrambled its fighter jets. Pakistan Air Force has announced two major air exercises, Fizai-Badr and Lalkar-e-Momin, and displayed its key air assets, the J-10 fighters, the F-16s, the JF-17 Thunders, the Saab 2000 airborne early warning and command and control platform, and the EW aircraft. Pakistan has also put on display its air defense units. Airspace between Lahore and Islamabad has been closed for the next 48 hours. And that's not all. Pakistan has shifted its radar systems to forward locations in the Sialkot sector to detect what Pakistan fears is an imminent Indian airstrike. The electronic warfare detachments of the Pakistan Army are also moving to its forward locations to detect Indian movements in the Firozpur sector.
We are absolutely ready, at high alert. If there is a violation of our airspace or there's violation on the ground, if we are engaged in any way on the seas, we are prepared to respond, and inshallah we'll give a befitting response to India.
For the fifth consecutive day, Pakistan violated ceasefire along the line of control and opened fire on both sides of the Pir Panjal ranges. The Pakistan Army has been firing without any provocation in Kupwara and Baramulla north of Pir Panjal and Poonch and Akhnur sectors south of Pir Panjal.
There is a likelihood that India will attempt an incursion in Pakistan and will engage Pakistan militarily. That is a possibility, a very clear and stark possibility. Cannot be ruled out.
The possibility of Indian strike appears very high in the Pakistani minds. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has already warned of unimaginable punishment.
उन आतंकियों को और इस हमले की साजिश रचने वालों को उनकी कल्पना से भी बड़ी सजा मिलेगी। अब आतंकियों की बची खुची जमीन को भी मिट्टी में मिलाने का समय आ गया है।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi chaired a high-level security meet at his 7 Lok Kalyan Marg residence in New Delhi. The Defence Minister, National Security Advisor, the Chief of Defence Staff and the 3 services chiefs were present in this crucial meeting ahead of the CCS on Wednesday morning. In the last meeting, India launched a huge diplomatic strike on Pakistan and announced the suspension of the Indus Waters Treaty that again has made Pakistan very jittery. What will India's next move be remains the big question. With Shivani Sharma and Manjeet Negi in Delhi, Bureau Report, India Today. Are we to understand Pakistan is on tenterhooks? Are we also to understand that something is imminent? General Dillon, you were in a similar situation in 2019, and in 2019, it took about 12 days after the Pulwama terror attack for India to do Balakot. Very few people knew what was going to happen. You were amongst those. What do you make of the Prime Minister's meeting right now with the NSA, the CDS, with RM, with Raksha Mantri and the 3 service chiefs, sir?
Good evening, Gaurav, and good evening to all your viewers and my fellow panelists. Gaurav, these meetings which are happening, there is something which is for display, and there are some meetings which happen behind the closed doors, which are not for public consumption. So there are two types of things which are happening, and like Prime Minister very clearly said, कि मिट्टी में मिला देंगे जिस जमीन पे भी टेररिस्ट होंगे, एंड आखिरी जगह तक जाके उनका नामो निशान मिटाएंगे. And this government walks the talk. And you can see the fumbleness in the voice of Defense Minister of Pakistan. And you can see otherwise also, the airspace has been blocked. You see the families of the senior generals have gone abroad. And you see, the choti-choti cheezein jo wo kar rahe hain, they are showing signs of being nervous. And the Cholistan is a very big issue. And I'm very sure somebody on the panel will touch upon this. And since there's already a crisis which is being, sort of generated because of Cholistan being a favorite subject and baby of Asif Munir, and Sindh being neglected. We must understand Indus Valley or Indus River. Sindh is named after Indus River. And denying the Indus water to Sindh at the cost of Cholistan Desert are big things. So coming back to your question, these meetings, these display of weapon systems is a posturing. And when nations or military's posture, there are two types. One is the posture and do something else and keep the enemy guessing. Second is the posture and do the same thing, so that enemy would keep expecting them somewhere else. Or at times the combination
what
of
is
these.
the combination, what do we make or what do we gauge? Is this a morale booster for the nation, Air Marshal Chopra, or is this to sap the morale of the adversary? Because General Tiny Dhillon is under the impression that the Pakistani defense minister's voice was shaking. Post Pulwama, we heard that their army chief's legs were shaking when Balakot happened, and they said, "Khuda ke liye Abhinandan ko chhod dijiye." But if there's a shake in the voice of the Pakistani defense minister, are we over-assessing a situation? What do you make of the Prime Minister's meeting and the Prime Minister's message from what sources tell India today?
Gaurav, undoubtedly, Pakistan is in a little bit of a state of panic. I'm a hawk. I believe in disproportionate response. I'm very happy that Indian Prime Minister Modi, has been not missing any words in public rallies or during the meeting that you have been repeatedly showing this morning. We know the body language. We can see how the entire security establishment is sitting together. They're chalking out some plans. I must tell you, when Balakot happened, why it took 10, 12 days? It was timing. That night we were having the National War Memorial being inaugurated at 5 o'clock in the evening. And that very night, in the midnight at 2:30, which is called the graveyard shift time. That is the time we carried out a strike. So there is a lot of planning going on. These exercises that Pakistan is doing, air-to-air exercise, they are just, it's trying to impress the world. They are trying to, tell India that they are very prepared. But I must tell you, Indian Air Force between 2019 and today is a different ball game altogether. We have the Rafale, we have the S-400, we have, upgraded Mirage 2000 and MiG-29s, we have Su-30, we have got large quantity of BrahMos, we have got cruise missiles, we have got the Scalp, we have got a lot of variety. So firstly, I want to tell the nation that Indian Air Force and Indian Army and the Navy are much, much better off to take on any eventuality. Of course, it will be a political decision. I'm not trying to say that the war is going to start, but the pressure on the LOC has to increase, which has already started. It's not that only Pakistan is, letting go some firing. I'm sure Indian Army is doing no less or should be doing much more. And remember, Pakistan will run out of ammunition much faster. The economy is in absolute trouble. So therefore, whatever decisions we take, and I'll tell you, many times I'm reading in newspapers, PL-12 and PL-15 missiles. I must tell you, PL-12 missile has got a range of less than 100 kilometers.
Yes.
The Meteor has 180 kilometers range.
100
Even if
yes.
PL-15 is available with the J-10C, it will be the export
Okay.
version, which is the PL-15E. And the PL-15E has got a range of less than 140 kilometers. So the point I'm making is that the Indian Armed Forces are much better positioned.
The Indian Armed Forces are much better prepared, you say, in a much better position to inflict pain. And I'm sure Admiral Sinha, Asim Munir, I mean, he may be a radical Islamist, as a chief, and the way he names his exercise, which we shall discuss subsequently. But then he must have wargamed all of this, and yet he did the attack on Pahalgam. Yet, and this time the change perhaps is that India is not saying it was a Lashkar-e-Taiba or a Jaish-e-Mohammed or a Hizbul Mujahideen or non-state actors or semi-state actors. It's directly Asim Munir and Pakistan Army is what sources are telling India today. Admiral Sinha, what do you make of the exercises that Pakistan is carrying out? What do you make of the Prime Minister's message to the armed forces, the body language of the three chiefs, the CDS, RM, and of course NSA?
Gaurav, thank you for having me on your program. There are two aspects to what the Prime Minister has been saying, and I'm sure that he would have repeated. If you hear his speech very carefully, there are two aspects. One is a tactical move and one is a strategic move. The tactical move is that there should be some visible punishment to Pakistan establishment. And strategic move is a slightly longer term, which may take a little bit of time. Because when he says, मैं terror की जमीन को मिट्टी में मिला दूंगा, so that's really a little long term, and I'm sure that he means business. Now, this time, my sense is that what he must have said that just go ahead and do the visible part, not the invisible part. Visible part for two reasons. One is that the expectation of our public is rising and Prime Minister has made a public statement. Now, where will this attack come from? In what form it will come? I think we'll have to wait for the time to come because it's very difficult to guess it now. And the second one, I really don't believe that there is a terror group. The biggest terrorist group in Pakistan is the army.
Yes.
And that has to be eliminated. I really don't believe that, there are all sort of, field agents of the Pakistan Army and the ISI. And therefore, removing them is a little long job. So you hear the voice of the Defense Minister of Pakistan. It's a very clear indication that there is a fair amount of nervousness going on. And a lot of, General Dhillon has just mentioned what he has mentioned, and I quite agree with him. Having had the honor of serving in the IDS for a fairly long time, it is a fact that a lot of things are done to make an impact. And why Pakistan is doing all this? It is not because they are very ready. Yes, they must be ready because they're expecting an attack. But it is also for their audience to tell them that, look, we are not behind. If Indian Army, Indian Air Force and Indian Navy is doing some preparation, so are we. We are ready.
No, and the kind of names... The kind of names they're keeping for the exercises, Admiral Sinha, Lalkare Momin or Fizai Badr, drawing a parallel with the Battle of Badr, in Islam, is seen as something which is very pious. So, and when you hear Asim Munir says only two countries have been formed on the name of Kalma. One is the Islamic empire, on the orders of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And of course, the other, he says, is Pakistan. So he's comparing himself to what Prophet Muhammad, the PBUH, did and what's happening right now. So is he like one of those radical Islamists, and a radical Islamist with a nuke could be a cause for grave concern? Are we to understand Navy this time will have a bigger role to play?
No, you're absolutely right. There are only two ways to collect they have the collective idea of Pakistan to come on one frame. And that is Islam, right? That's the only thing which unites the whole country. And it is often repeated anytime that the Pakistani establishment wants people to forget about everything else and come round together to support the armed forces, on the name of Islam. So that is that. Navy's role, yesterday I had mentioned on some channel, I think it was your channel probably, that, you know, the Navy has the flexibility of shifting the entire theater of action to a different place from where the enemy is expecting. You know, we have a lot of freedom of movement. The Navy can move fast, 600, 700 kilometers in, 24 hours. And therefore, let the Pakistanis imagine what they are imagining. And the Navy might just do an attack from a different direction, from a different place. And doesn't have to do a very high intensity attack. Even a small attack can really put them off. So I think that Navy does have a role to play.
If you were to do an attack, and I want to welcome Tilak Deveshar, former Special Secretary of RAW, joining us on this broadcast. Sir, welcome. Before I come to you, I want to come back to General Dhillon on whether once we do a strike and they do a retaliatory strike, it's 1-1. I mean, we may have destroyed that terror training camp at Balakot, but Pakistan did do a swift retort and claim that they were in a position to strike our brigade headquarters, and they chose not to, even though my sources told me that they'd fired close to 50 missiles and did not succeed, air-to-air and some air-to-ground, and they did not succeed in hitting a single target, except, of course, Winko Abhinandan's aircraft then. But I want to understand from you, if it was a repeat of, we hit once and they hit once and we do a surgical strike and they say nothing happened, then do we still have that moral superiority and ascendancy in the battle? This time it has to be something bigger.
Yeah, Gaurav, this time it has to be bigger. It has to be different than the last two strikes. One was the pure military army strike after Uri, and one was the pure Air Force strike after Pulwama. Now, this time, one thing which is now again emerging is, this is the first time, at least we have come to know who is the Defense Minister of Pakistan. Otherwise, the Defense Minister of Pakistan was a non-descript appointment. And now Asif Munir is not coming in the front. He is not coming on the TV channels. He is not making statements. Now, suddenly the Defense Minister has come forward. And the point which you made, is he capable of striking back? Yes, he would try to strike back at some place to keep his people guessing and happy that I have done it. But one thing which is very clear, the dissimilarity or similarity between the two forces, the war fighting stamina, the point was touched by Admiral Chopra, the war fighting stamina of India is much larger than the Pakistan. So we need to make sure that we keep him engaged so that he finishes all his ammunition. Today's ammunitions are not cheap, they're very expensive, and we know what is his holding. So it is in our favor if we stagger the operations for a longer duration. When I say longer duration, more than one strike. And if Pakistan gives us a reason to do it, then he will be damned. So this
very
is
interesting.
where
So you say,
we have the spirit.
Very, very interesting. So you're saying strike, wait for a response, wait for your time, and then strike again.
Yes.
And then strike again. And again, and continue to strike that state sponsor of radical Islamist terror. Tilak Deveshwar, you understand the Pakistani mind very well. And you understand Asif Munir's mind. What do you make of what the Prime Minister said, what Pakistan is doing, the kind of exercising he's carrying out, the names like Lalkare Momin, Fizai Badr? Is he trying to draw this Muslims versus Hindus in this conflict as far as the Pakistani mind is concerned, sir?
Thank you, Gaurav. I think given what the Prime Minister said, in Bihar, he talked about unimaginable consequences and, mitti mein mila denge thing. I don't think so only a terror strike or a strike against a terror target is going to fill the bill. I think it's going to be much more. And, the immediate reaction that came after 24 hours, especially the non-kinetic holding the Indus Treaty in abeyance, that is going to have very serious long-term consequences for Pakistan. We all want swift retribution. We want to see attack. We want to see destruction. But, holding the treaty in abeyance means that you disrupt their water supplies.
Yes.
At a time when the early Kharif is going to be starting in the, first half of May. If you disrupt the sowing and also the harvest, it will have very serious consequences for Pakistan's agriculture. So that's one part of it. as far as the kinetic operations are concerned, you see, Pakistan will react very quickly. Whatever you do, within 24 hours, 36 hours, like they did in the time of the Balochistan strike, they will come back at you, because in their mindset, it will be one strike each and that's it. I think Dill made an interesting point that if you keep going back, the only danger there is that you will also be going up the escalation ladder.
Yes.
So, that, and because they have a first use policy on the nuclear issue, I'm not sure how effective or sensible it will be to go up the escalation ladder too quickly. So you have to hit them hard the first time, wait for a reaction, and if required, hit them again. But beyond that, going up the escalation ladder would be dangerous.
Okay, but you have to hit them again. That's very clear. But there's another aspect I want our viewers to understand, because not many would really know what's happening deep inside Pakistan, how fragmented Pakistan is, the fissures and fault lines within Pakistan. And I want you to consider what I'm telling you. There are protests against the Pakistan army that are taking place even as we speak in Gilgit and in Balochistan, which is in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, that Pakistan calls its northern areas. Locals in Gilgit and Balochistan have come out in large numbers against the atrocities. Watch these images and watch these images full screen. This is the population of Gilgit and Balochistan protesting against Pakistan Army's exploitation of minerals and resources, and of course of Gilgit and Balochistan since 1947. They've risen against the exploitation of the resources by the Pakistan Army that's pocketing all the profits from the exploitation of minerals, of resources, of land. And do keep in mind, this is not the first time that there's been an unrest. Of course, this is one of the larger ones in Gilgit and Balochistan. And of course, when you come down to Muzaffarabad in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, where people have been rising for jobs, better housing, electricity, 22-hour-long power cuts out of 24 hours. That is what people in Gilgit and Balochistan and Muzaffarabad are suffering. Apart from human rights violation, there are reports of changing of demographic profile of the region. We want you to know about what's happening there. I want you to see the map of Pakistan, and when you look at that country, I first want to point out where is Gilgit and Balochistan in this map. So Gilgit and Balochistan is where you see protests that are happening right now against the Pakistan army. Then from Gilgit and Balochistan, I want you to now come down to Balochistan. And Balochistan is Pakistan army's Achilles heel. There have been multiple suicide bombings in Balochistan. Do remember what has just happened in Balochistan, and that made headlines across the world, that a train, that Jafar Express, that was taken hostage. Passengers on board were taken hostage. 26 people, we are told, were killed. 18 of them were Pakistan army officers and soldiers. Then suicide bombings, a spate of suicide bombings by Baloch women, and many of them are doctors and engineers and school teachers, educated women. They've risen against the Pakistan army occupation peacefully and not so peacefully. You have political leaders in Pakistan who are saying that at least 6 to 8 districts here in Balochistan are no longer in control of the Pakistan army at all. They could declare independence and Pakistan could do nothing about it. Let me now take you to Pakistan's second Achilles heel, and this is Khyber and Pakhtunkhwa province, or KPK, or once known as the NWFP, or the Northwest Frontier Province of Pakistan. This, since the Afghan takeover or the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan. Let me give you some statistics so that will help you understand the situation on ground. 2021, this is when Taliban took over. within months, between August and December, more than 100 people, and these include security forces, armies, local police, state police, central armed police forces there, or paramilitary forces there, killed in clashes between TTP, Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, and Pakistan Army. Point one. Point two, 2022, 280. So this killed. This was 74% of all the casualties that were taking place in Pakistan. In 2023, this number rose to 315. 63% of the 500 deaths. So every year, the number of people dying in Pakistan is increasing. 2024, 200 to 250, because Pakistan is now no longer giving out images or details of the number of people killed. Commentators in Pakistan say the situation is only expected to worsen along this 2,600 kilometer long, and watch this entire Durand line, or the AFPAC border, Afghanistan-Pakistan border, Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. It's only intensifying the situation there. Pakistan Army is bleeding and hard all along. Then there is a fight that is happening between Sindh and Punjab. They are at loggerheads on the sharing of the Indus Waters Treaty. And there is a pet project of General Asim Munir, the chief of the army staff. He seeks to divert water of these rivers and take it to the Cholistan Desert. There's a project, the Cholistan Desert Project, and this is part of General Asim Munir's plan to mint money, to sell corner plots. That's the main job of the Pakistan Army, incidentally. It's not to fight wars. It's only spread terror and sell corner plots. Of course, make cement and cornflakes is what they do in their part-time as part of Pakistan's Fauji Foundation. So, greening the Cholistan Desert is part of Green Pakistan Initiative, or GPI. It's an ambitious agricultural project. What does this project say? This is the Sindh province, that's the Punjab province. It's aimed at transforming a barren desert into fertile farmland. It's a pipe dream. It can never happen, but this is what they wanted to do. It's in southern Punjab. It's approximately 25,800 square kilometers of land. The project involves construction of 6 canals. 2 canals in Punjab province of Pakistan, 2 canals in the Sindh province, and of course in Balochistan to irrigate 4.8 million acres of desert land. 5 canals will draw water from the Indus rivers. The 6th from the Mehfooz Shaheed Canal, or rainwater harvesting or surplus monsoon water from Satluj River, as again part of the Indus Waters Treaty. So can Pakistan actually do this? It aspires to do that. Sindh and Punjab were at war, forcing the suspension of this project. It's being held in abeyance within Pakistan, because Indus Waters Treaty anyway has been held in abeyance by the Narendra Modi government. So Pakistan Army's pet project is either dead or it is stillborn. Look at the situation in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, for example. 295 terror strikes took place in 2024. And watch the number of people who are dying in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. 295 terror strikes have taken place in 2024. If you were to talk about the major strikes, remember Bannu cantonment terror attack? 8 Pakistani soldiers were killed in Bannu. Then, in February 2024, there was an attack on a police station in which 10 police officers were killed. The situation on ground is so bad that Pakistan Army just doesn't know how to handle this. In Balochistan, there have been 614 deaths. 614. You include civilians, military personnel, and this is just from 2024 to 2025. Major attacks, like I said, include the Jafar Express, 26 killed. In Sindh, Karachi, Election Commission office was bombed. In Punjab, there were targeted attacks against the Hindus and the Christians. And of course, Sikhs have also been targeted, the manner in which they have been. I once again want to bring in Tilak Deveshwar on this special broadcast. Mr. Deveshwar, when you look at the situation, and let's specifically talk about Indus Waters Treaty being held in abeyance and the impact on the Cholistan Desert Greening Project, is that a setback? Is that a blow to Asim Munir?
You see, even before the treaty was held in abeyance, it was a setback to Asim Munir because the kind of protests that are taking place in Sindh. In fact, today or yesterday, there are about 7,000 trucks that have blocked the highway, because of this, and they are not satisfied by just saying that the matter will be taken up in the Council of Common Interest. They want a total withdrawal of this Green Pakistan initiative, which was a joint project of the army and the Chief Minister of Punjab. So because of those protests, the government has been forced to take a pause and to put that entire project on hold. Now, if you top this up with the holding of the Indus Water Treaty in abeyance by India, it further complicates the matter. You see, the importance of the holding it in abeyance is that the water supplies are going to get disrupted. Instead of a regular flow in which India is passing on information on a regular basis about the flows, India is not going to provide any information anymore. And also, like the Jhelum was flooded, then now there's no water in the Jhelum. So, these disruptions, when the crops require water, are something that is going to severely impact Pakistani agriculture. So I think this is going to again then create more tensions between Sindh and Punjab.
Yes.
So
now, General Dhillon, in a situation like this, can Pakistan actually afford to fight India? I fail to understand a country that's literally coming apart at the seams in Gilgit-Baltistan, in Balochistan, in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, trouble between Sindh and Punjab. Is that the reason why he targeted Pahalgam, so that he could unite the country, all Muslims together against Hindus?
Gaurav, in Pakistan, only two issues unite everyone together. One is religion, second is Kashmir. And the type of economic downturn which is happening in Pakistan, their military is in doldrums, you just brought out. They are stretched from KPK, Afghanistan border, Iranian border, Balochistan, Sindh, and also Gilgit-Baltistan. And this time, they will have very little forces to be deployed on their eastern borders, that is the border with India, because they are stretched all over. And second thing which I can tell is, this time, in the beginning of the program, this point came up, that terrorism is not what the terrorists are doing. The main player who is spreading terror in India is Pakistan military. So this time, the targets which will be chosen will be the Pakistan military target, basically to destroy their war-fighting capability. Because war-fighting capabilities take decades to build. You destroy a war-fighting machinery or war-fighting equipment or war-fighting storage or war-fighting, any equipment. That would take years to build, and that would put Pakistan behind in the matrix for a long, long time. So these things are very important. The initiatives taken by the government are not going to be only military options. Diplomatic, some options have already been taken. I always say it is going to be military, diplomatic, political, economic, and some of the options we don't talk. So all this combined together is going to squeeze Pakistan this time, and Pakistan military is going to be the main target.
Very interesting you should mention that. And it's not just Asim Munir, it's those 9 corps commanders and their entire military jihad complex. And I don't just mean terror complex. The Pakistan ordnance factories that manufacture the ammunition, the bombs, the missiles, the rocket launchers, the aircraft, all of that. But before I come to that, there's breaking news coming in. I'm coming to Air Marshal Chopra and Admiral Sinha. But before that, there's breaking news coming in. Pakistan is clearly very spooked. It's warmongering. And how? There's a big reaction that's coming in from Pakistan's foreign minister right now. Pakistan's foreign minister is threatening India with war. It's not just their defense minister, but Ishaq Dar, their deputy prime minister and their foreign minister, has threatened India with a certain war if Indus waters are stopped. Ishaq Dar says, we are not in a mood to retaliate, but we have to take our economy forward. If Indus waters are not released, then just hear the words exactly from him.
अगर आपने हमारे पानी के साथ कोई गड़बड़ की, ये तो पेपर पे है ना, बेंस वही है, तो हम फिर ये एक जंग तस्वर होगी, क्योंकि ये 240 मिलियन लोगों की लाइफ लाइन है, उनकी एग्रीकल्चर, हमें पानी ऑब्वियसली एक बुनियादी जरूरत है हर एक की, तो इसलिए इसमें कोई कॉम्प्रोमाइज नहीं होगा.
Air Marshal Chopra your appreciation of what Ishaq Dar is saying, that if you stop the Indus waters, there will be war. And as Tilak Deveshwar was just telling us, India's already telling Pakistan, one day they stopped water, one day they flooded the Jhelum, or it's just starting.
You know, Gaurav, I think it is rhetoric, as have been some of the other speeches in the last few days, primarily aimed at their own public. And therefore, we will get more of these, but we don't have to get worried about this. You know, we must concentrate. I personally am of the opinion, like General Tiny Dhillon, that, you know, this escalation ladder that we are all talking about can be highly managed, overrated, you know, as if anything we'll do, they will nuke us. Nothing like that is going to happen. You know, we have got more nuclear warheads. We have got now, you know, multiple warhead capabilities. So I think we should not overplay this. Pakistani nuclear bluff has already been, you know, called out. So therefore, I do believe that we have to do a multi-domain operation. All the three services have to act in unison. The three chiefs have been put together in that meeting that we have seen. We have to, you know, run a barrage of firing on the LOC. We have to make them run dry. We have to hit the military targets, certainly the near ones. And we can manage the escalation. Surely it's not going to be nobody is going to go nuclear, I promise you, yeah.
Okay. In a situation, you know, what you say is very heartening. Admiral Sinha, in a situation that India were to actually implement what we are saying, because there are many who are saying, how long can you hold water? You can't hold it indefinitely. You will have to release water. You don't have the storage capacity. You can't divert the Indus water from Ladakh down to Ganga Nehar. It's just not feasible. So this is an empty threat. Do you think it's an empty threat? If you were to combine India's actions, starting with Indus Waters Treaty, which has never been blocked before or held in abeyance before, and the military actions that are being spoken of, if you were the Red Army chief, if you were the Red Team chief, would you be a concerned man tonight?
Now, let me first get back to this Indus water. You know, Prime Minister Modi made a statement in 2016 that this Indus Water Treaty is absolutely unfair and we need to do something. And since then, the government is not sitting idle. There are already tunnels, already, you know, the diversion methods have already been created. It's just a matter of saying, yes, go ahead and implement. We heard that Jhelum was already sort of flooded the day before yesterday. So this is just a test that this is what can happen and this is how your country will react, but they will actually not react. Because don't forget, Pakistan has much more to lose if they start a war. And as Marshal Chopra said, a lot of it they have to say in their own Senate, in their own parliament. They have to say it for the benefit of the people. It's basically an agricultural intensive country. And if they don't make these statements, they will have a public uprising. You know, more than religion, I think the stomachs don't get filled. You know, there's going to be trouble. So I would say that it is not an empty threat. The control of the river flow of Indus River is very much in the hands. The methods have already been created. It is just a question of implementing it immediately. So I won't go so much. Yeah.
Okay. And Mr. Deveshwar, when you look at Pakistan's internal situation, if it's trying to fight India at the line of control, which is 770 kilometers long, or even along the international border in Punjab, Rajasthan, Gujarat, doesn't it fear what could happen, you know, in Gilgit-Baltistan or in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa or in Balochistan? Does Pakistan Army have the wherewithal to fight on multiple fronts, on two borders and internally?
I don't think so. You see, as it is, there were reports that elements of 11 Corps and 12 Corps have been moved to the Indian border. So this opens up space for the Baloch freedom fighters as well as for the TTP. And I don't think that Pakistan will be able to manage both tensions with India on the, especially if it goes into some sort of a military exchange, and manage the Baloch freedom fighters as well as the TTP. So I think the unintended consequences, which probably they didn't anticipate or calculate, of Pahalgam is going to be that these two organizations, the Baloch as well as the Pashtuns, are going to have a pretty much a free run of the place. And now Pakistan is going to be able to manage that with an active border with India and a pretty active border with the Taliban too. So they are painted themselves in some sort of a corner by this bravado action which they took in Pahalgam. And now the fallout of that is going to hit them severely. And
Would
you
it
combine
be
this...
Yeah, go on, sir. Please complete your point. Go on, sir.
And then you combine this with the water crisis that is going to hit them in the face, I think it's pretty tough. It's going to get very, very uncomfortable in Pakistan.
It indeed is. In fact, there are some reports that already say that there are some in Pakistan, General Dillon, who are already feeling the heat. Their army is stretched to the core. There was a report which seemed to indicate that to make money, and Pakistan calls us baniyas, but Pakistan, to make money, sold off its own ammunition, its active stocks of ammunition to Ukraine. It did get dollars, but now it cannot replenish and cannot replenish so quickly. So its own WWR or war wastage reserves are down by some reports, and you can tell me whether they're authentic or not, to less than a week. What is in case there's a full-blown war, your appreciation, General Dillon?
Gaurav, I made a reference to it in my previous interjection, that war fighting stamina of India vis-a-vis the war fighting stamina of Pakistan, especially in very high-end weapon systems, the aircraft ammunitions, the naval equipments and accessories, and of course within the army also the missiles and all. It is not easy to buy such weapon systems and equipment and ammunitions, and Pakistan hardly produces anything in-house. So it has to depend on China and Turkey for everything. And this time the world is with India. Even during the war, even if someone wants to help it other than these two countries, I don't think anyone would come forward to help a state like Pakistan, because the whole world is fed up of Islamic terror, and the whole world is fed up of this nuclear in the hands of a state which practices terrorism as a statecraft. So war fighting stamina is in India's favor, and that is where we should hit Pakistan military targets so that their stamina further goes down in the initial phase itself.
Very, very interesting. And that is why we get the finest voices on matters military and strategy, so that you form an opinion based absolutely on facts and not Pakistani propaganda that some may seek to peddle.